Hi folks, Ron Bishop from Timaru, New Zealand. I'm telling my life story. And to tell my life story I have to tell you about my ancestors. You see, my ancestors were Wilsons. My great-great-grandfather was Reverend John Alexander Wilson, who brought out his family to New Zealand in the early 1800s to convert the Maoris to Christianity, because the Maoris at that time were savages. They were eating each other, they had no formal religion, and they were lost. So he worked with them. He also had a son called John Alexander Wilson, and John Alexander Wilson Jr. became the first Native Maori Land Court judge in New Zealand. He was based in Tauranga. And Judge Wilson was responsible for purchasing much of the land around the Bay of Plenty and confiscating land from Maoris who didn't pay their rates. Judge John Alexander Wilson made a huge difference to the landscape of New Zealand. He owned White Island, and he was the first to manufacture phosphate from the volcano on White Island. I'm very proud of my ancestors because they laid the foundations to make New Zealand a better place to live. But I feel very sad at the moment and bitter because the work that my ancestors did is becoming undermined by a few people. I was born in the North Island, and I went back there for Christmas. I've been living in the South Island of New Zealand for about 50 years now. But I went back to the North Island over the Christmas period, and I got talking to North Islanders, and they're all talking about the Maori people, how they, the Treaty of Waitangi, how it's being abused, because there's a few people in Parliament that keep asking for money from the government, which we call the gravy train, because they don't want to work, they just want to get money for personal grievances of something that happened to their ancestors many years ago. And it saddens me that they choose not to work, but choose to get into Parliament and try and get more money. And it's costing the country millions of dollars. You see, once you start giving handouts to people, they just want more and more and more. The analogy reminds me of my uncle. He was an outdoor person. He worked in the bush most of his life, and he loved the birds. And he always he was never married, but he always, when he was having his lunch, he would always throw his crumbs out to the birds. And there were always plenty of birds around Uncle Ted's batch. But Ted's dead now. He died several years ago. But the birds didn't die when Ted died. They're still alive. And it's the same with people. If you keep feeding people for nothing, giving them free meals, money for nothing, money for not working, they'll just keep coming back for more, because that's the way you're conditioning them. Another good example of people wanting more is with the Employment Relations Act in New Zealand. As you know, I've been spouting out a lot about the Employment Relations Act and how the personal grievance claims in the Employment Relations Act should be wiped. And there should be no such thing as personal grievance claims. But you see, what is happening is the same thing with the birds. You see, I hired a woman to work for me, and she had been dismissed from a previous job and made a successful claim for compensation for getting the sack. And when I sacked her, she wanted to do the same, and she did. She did do the same, and she got over $30,000 from me because she didn't want to work, you see. She wanted to get the easy money. And it's happening every day, and people are complaining about it, but nobody's doing anything about it. You know why they're not doing anything about it? Let me work it out for you, and I'll come back to you and tell you why they don't want to work. It's not hard to work out, is it? Why there's so many personal grievance claims in this country. You see, the majority of the people are workers. They work for other people. They're employees. And the employees make the rules because they're in the majority. There's more workers than there are owners of businesses. And the politicians want votes, so they design the rules to suit the majority. So that you'll find that's why the one-sided law is in existence, because the employment law is in favour of the worker, because they're designed by the worker, for the worker, not for the business owners. And the politicians know this. So that's why they make a law that suits them, and not the minority, which are, of course, the business owners. So I'm not going to go on anymore. What I want you to do is this. There are dozens and dozens of posts on my blog now about employment law. I've been writing for ages, and nobody will listen to me. I'm the only voice in this. Oh yeah, they'll moan to me, they'll grizzle to me, and they'll write letters to me and they'll moan, but they won't get up and stand up and say, hey, this is wrong. Let's help Ron. Let's help Ron change the law. Let's get rid of treaties of Waitangi claims. Let's come together as a country. I'm trying to throw in a bit of humour on this. But no one's taking any notice. Very few people read my posts. Very few people go onto YouTube and read my stuff. But I'm going to keep going. I'm not going to stop, because I owe it to my ancestors. They're the ones that founded this country. They're the ones that did the groundwork. They laid the foundations for New Zealand as it is today, and I've got to keep it going. If I don't keep it going, and no one else gives me a hand to keep going, the whole bloody thing will fall to bits, and we might as well all jump off the bloody cliff. No, folks. Give us a hand, will you? Come on out there. You stop your moaning and get out and give me a hand to change the New Zealand employment laws in this country for the benefit of us all. See you tomorrow.